world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
There's nothing like being in the stands cheering on your favorite team. Game Time is your hack to unlocking amazing tickets in just a few taps. Plus, their Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets at the best price. Fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. Get the best deals on sports tickets. Download the Game Time app and create an account to start searching for tickets to upcoming games and events. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time.
Welcome to No Question About That, discussing United 3, Ipswich 2, with the recently unemployed Wayne Barton. How's it going, sir? Sorry to hear about Big Sir Jim wielding his massive axe on your head. A big loss.
Yeah. To who? Not to United. It doesn't feel like that. Sorry, I'm feeling a bit grumpy. What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about this?
I mean, I just wanted to acknowledge that you put 2 years of hard work into United and you are now but a statistic. But United's loss is the world's gain. You can put more time into your books, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to worry about that. I had enough time for everything. Yeah, look, it's true. First of all, I've posted on socials about this so people can see what Ed's talking about. I don't have to go into all that detail here. I am just one of many people who were affected by this, many incredible people. Including the people who have to deliver the news as well. It's really, really tough because we've had conversations before and I don't, because of the position I had at the club, it didn't always go into the detail. We'd have a conversation. I never stopped talking about it, but there were certain information, certain details I wouldn't go into because it's just, I didn't think it was my place, not because of protection or anything. It's just, or maybe a little bit of that. It's just not the done thing and you don't want to do the thing. But I will say that a lot of people have lost their job and they talk, well, that much is obvious, but I mean, a lot of people, good people, my experience, it's just my experience, a lot of people will talk about how bloated and how cuts were necessary. I don't think that that's true because I think that Manchester United are the biggest club in the country and they needed the resources. And every person I've seen who has been affected by this was doing a job that was necessary and doing a fantastic job. There were some brilliant people who I worked with who were already gone in the first round of redundancies, and that was hard enough. But I'm not going to sit here and hide my emotions. I'm absolutely heartbroken to leave United. And I hope that the opportunity comes up in the near future for me to go back there. I hope so. I hope that's going to happen. But it's difficult. It's difficult today. I was there all day. I worked and then sat through a game of football, which I've been to many, many hundreds of games United. And it's the first time that really just didn't feel like I wanted to be there because of everything. Yeah. So I mean that's my news, but I'll probably feel a bit better about it, a bit more logical. I've tried to be sort of diplomatic about it on socials and everything like that, but it's a really, really difficult one for me, to be honest.
Yeah, look, anyone who's been through this process, I have, at companies that are struggling or cutting back, or work in America now, so corporates who just feel like their profitability hasn't ticked up enough that quarter. You end up feeling a little bit like a discarded box of paper clips. And of course that isn't true. And no one actually wants to behave like that when they're delivering that kind of news, but it tends to tends to feel like that sometimes for the people affected. And we forget in all the analysis of United's financials and balance sheet and how we have to get around FFP, and this word bloated is pushed out there, or restructuring or transformation, or all the other euphemisms, that there's 500 humans nearly who've lost their jobs at United in the last year or so. And that's pretty tragic. I'm going to talk about this for NQ80 Extra with Tom tomorrow about the human impact. And then my Substack this week was on the more dry analysis of what exactly is going on and why and what I think the strategy is. But yeah, it's a tragedy because it's an overused word, but United is a family club. I mean, I think whether you're on the outside or the inside, and people I've spoken to worked there, been there, played there, fans commentate on it from far away, and players and ex-players all talk about it like that. And that's not, I think it's an exaggeration to say that everyone was pulling in the same direction, and the current transformation, to use the buzzword of the day, is really has a brutal cultural and human impact, and we shouldn't forget that. All right, onto the game. Just wanted to acknowledge that United won 3-2. Right, crazy amount of stuff happened in the game between 15th place United, or now 14th, and 17th place United, an absolute classic February downpour in Manchester. I don't know how much that contributed to the low standards of game. Like, the quality wasn't particularly high in this game. The drama was quite high, and there's a fair amount of spirit, I think, in United playing more than a half of this game with 10 men.
Yeah.
And 3 important points, not aiming for anything, obviously, now, but points mean places, places mean money, money matters, and all of that. So what are your impressions? You've just got back from the game.
Difficult to know, really, how to process that kind of game, because, I mean, it was so poor, riddled with errors. There's some big errors from players that we've seen before. The crowd was getting on the back of some individuals, as you could expect. Højlund, obviously, I mean, I don't like statistics that crucify players, but Højlund's win rate of those long balls must be less than 5%.
Yeah.
It's really poor. Onana making 2 more critical errors in there, defending. The conditions were terrible, but I don't think the conditions really can be blamed for the goals that we conceded, which, I mean, said its own thing, really. But then, yeah, you said the resilience. There were different things to be seen from that performance. So some of the things were weird, really, because United were opening up the play. I know you're asking me for a brief summary here, but one of my main takeaways from this was that more than one occasion I saw United open the game up, and they had no midfield. Now, that's no surprise, but we do have 2 midfielders. Historically, you'd say United play like that, and we've been missing a midfield for so long. But Ugarte would go out to the right, and Bruno would drop into the centre-back position, and there was no one there to build the play up. So you had this, I don't know if it's part of the change within the system, which I do encourage for sure. Like, we've talked about Amorim's approach and how he changes with what he's got within the system that he's got, because he's still going to keep the system. So how do you evolve within that? So maybe this is one of those things that he did, because we were pushing 5 high, which is definitely something to be appreciative of. The problem is that they don't hold the ball up. And obviously what we wanted to see as a game plan was pretty much in the bin from the moment that the red card happened. And it's kind of like, can you get the lead? Oh, well, can you hold on to the lead at the time? Can you regain the lead? And then can you hold on to it? It becomes less about conclusions of style and substance, right? It becomes about character, and you say, all right, well, you got over that hurdle, and you dismiss 45 minutes of evidence on the back of, doesn't matter who you're playing against, you had 10 men and you had to get through the game. So you look at other characteristics, and so you say that United passed the test in that regard. It just, until he got to that point, I wasn't convinced again. They rarely are convincing at the moment, and that continues to be a
15th
concern.
place, what do you expect? Sort of thing. There's some aspects of the first 40 minutes or so that weren't bad. If you take away the calamitous goals, they did play through the wings. I mean, it's a little bit this U shape again, isn't it? And they did play in wide areas in an interesting fashion. Dorgu and Garnacho linking up, and the same down the right-hand side, sort of, with Xerxes sort of drifting out there. Not quite as dynamic with Dallo and Xerxes, I guess. There were some nice passing moves. Xerxes, kind of interesting player in that I think his confidence is building, and he got good reception from the crowd by the end of the game. He does some nice touches, but he creates almost nothing, and there's zero chance he's ever going to score many goals. He just doesn't get in the positions you're going to score goals from. So you wonder, long term, I'd be very doubtful whether he really makes it at United. I would love to be completely wrong about that, but some nice bits today. So nice enough for 40 minutes, but it's really hard to look at that in isolation without the calamitous first goal. You can blame Dorgu, you can blame Manana, blame them both for not communicating, but it's the kind of thing you see for schoolboy football. In fact, I was done like that when I was a goalkeeper for my schoolboy team. And I remember one going past me from back pass, and I felt like an idiot, and everyone blamed me for it. And I was like, hang on a minute, you passed it back past me. Anyway, still hurts, Wayne, 30 years later. So, yeah, very poor communication between the two of them. I don't actually know why Anana rushed out, because if he hadn't done that, it'd have been easy. He just cleared it up really easily. So it seemed like a pretty bad mistake. Wayne?
Yeah, I put both of them on the goalkeeper, to be honest, because the second one's a cross as well. I just think you're making decisions that you don't need to be making. And he does that. He did it, in the Everton game, pushing balls up, but into danger. And I just think, I know he said at the start of the season, didn't he? I'm going to be taking more risks, and he does.
Not those kind of risks.
But why? I don't. Yeah, that's it. I don't understand why you would. There's the old adage in football that when you are defensively catastrophic, you go back to basics, right? You don't take risks, but he still perseveres with this thing. Like, I do think, maybe it's the evolution of football. Maybe goalkeepers have become personalities in a different kind of way. There's this whole element of he likes to be on the ball. We rarely see that from a goalkeeper in history, really. They're reactive. They're not people to dance around on the ball, but he loves having the ball, and then to sort of give this foreboding forecast of, I'm going to be taking risks this season. And again, I don't want to sound, but you can't ignore the evidence of tonight when there's been two more errors, and there was some poor goalkeeping at the weekend.
I don't know that him coming out for the first one was risk taking per se, but it may well be that he's being proactive, or he thinks he needs to do that, but it's just a terrible error in judgment. If he stays on his 6-yard line, there's no way the forward is getting to it. It's being cleared up by Patrick Dorgu. Dorgu thinks he's just going to play a simple pass back, and unfortunately they're way too close together. That literally is one of those things that the coach, when you're in a schoolboy team, will talk to you about, the communication in those kind of situations. So the second one, that look, I'm not a goalkeeping coach. I'm making this up, honestly, but it seems to me like he takes the step the wrong way quite a lot. And there's something weird about his feet where he steps out of the way. And I mean, I think if he stood still, that would have hit him. So he basically walks out of the way and then tries to dive back. It's just very, very odd.
We've conceded that goal a few times as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not the first one, but we've conceded that. You can't have a goalkeeper. I mean, there are some where you say you shoot straight at him and they're quite soft. I mean, the area is quite close to him. He lets a lot of goals in there, that are too close to his body. And the cross shots. I mean, I remember once, was it Morten Gamst Pedersen scored one? And it might be Tim Howard in the Howard and Carroll glory days. But you rarely saw them, but you see them all the time now. Again, I don't want to be throwing one or two players under the bus here, but I do think when you look at this season as a whole, this season in particular, I struggle to think of any season in history where United have conceded so many goals that could have been avoided if not for basic goalkeeping errors or basic goalkeeping improvements or risks.
Yeah.
That one today was it just at the wrong time as well. It was the wrong time. You want to be thinking just before half time, just get through to the break with the 10 men so you can reorganise and then set out a game plan. And he switches off. That's switching off. And you've conceded a goal, and the entire there's the crowd. All right, they're booing the referee, but they're getting anxious again. Do you know what I mean? That could have been avoided. But thankfully, I mean, within a couple of minutes after the break, that's academic. So,
yeah. Well, let's talk about player we haven't mentioned so far, Bruno, who's involved in all of United's goals in one way or another. Obviously, he delivers the set piece for the Sam Morsey own goal, a brilliant free kick, just fizzed it across. There's some frustration with Bruno because he does hit those flat ones from corners or set pieces, and so it will tend to hit the first man, which I always think is just good defending. You're in the right place, and so it's a high risk, high reward ball, and that one's obviously kind of forced Morsey, who didn't have the best game, Ipswich captain, and put one in his own net. But I think a lot of that, 75% that is on the delivery into the right area, forces the player to do something. We haven't been great from set pieces for a very, very long time, but there's 3 goals all come from a set piece today. So, hey, maybe we're getting better. And so that was the initial equaliser on 22 minutes. Then we have De Ligt's goal, another corner. That was full on 15th place versus 17th place. Scrappy nonsense that one was. But De Ligt reacted really well. He did react quickly. For a man who doesn't move very quickly normally, he has turned around very quickly and slammed that in with his left foot. So good on him for that.
Yeah, classic. Like you described it perfectly. Relegation, well, not even relegation. I don't think it had that kind of drama about it, but bottom end of the table, scrappy little quality. But yeah, I think the overriding point is that Bruno pulled us out of the hole again. It's funny to me that we scored 3 goals from set plays because we're so poor at them generally.
Yeah. Maybe we're improving. Carlos Fernandez is working on it.
Probably the conditions helped, to be honest, today, I think. But when it works, give credit. Bruno's again the main creative spark, not just on set plays. I think he was running like I said, he was dropping deeper and running the game. And I think in those moments where you are noticing subtle shifts, like little tweaks, what Amram's trying, you look for the leaders who are trying to change that around. Maguire was trying different things. He was trying to be quicker with that. Yeah, all right. We've seen him try the long pass before, but he was trying to be quicker with it. And Bruno was trying to open up the space in there for them not to be so static. I think it was very important. I'm not saying United were much better. I've been quite critical of the performance here, but you could see what the little things that they were trying to do with Bruno dropping back. And I'm just not convinced by that black hole in midfield. Once he drops back and Ugarte dives off to the right. And also this other weird obsession that they get with set plays where they all lump it up to one area of the pitch, which I know a lot of teams do. But United tend to do it more than most. Like there's this clear directive of Onana to sort of hit it into the corner and everyone sort of fights for it. But United are just terrible at holding it up. So I don't know what they stand to gain from that. There's got to be a better way of playing a set piece where the ball falls to United, because then you would just say, I acknowledge that you're going to lose the first ball, but work harder on the counter press. But United don't do that. What they do is they surrender the first ball, and then the players are all out of position for the counter attack. It happens every single time. And McKenna knows that. McKenna is drilled in that, and Ipswich didn't have the quality tonight to take advantage of that, but they could have done. They had opportunities to do that.
Yeah, it is interesting because there's a bit of a trend this season towards slightly more direct play, given how coordinated and aggressive so many teams are with the high press in English football and have been for some time, following City and Liverpool's lead here, that a few teams are either countering that with the mid-block or going a bit longer. And United have been doing quite a bit of that, which is just kind of weird because we brought in a goalkeeper to play possession football out the back, become the third centre-back. Now we have 3 actual centre-backs, so one's redundant in the build-up. Darnish talked about it on the tactics pod. Maguire often being redundant in that build-up. And then we go a bit longer. So we've got a footballing goalkeeper who makes way too many mistakes. He's replaced a goalkeeper who couldn't play football at all, who also made way too many mistakes near the end because he got the yips. And it just doesn't feel like it adds up. And add to that the fact that we, as you say, we cannot hold the ball up. I mean, Rasmus Højlund, Amarim spoke about in the build-up to this one. He was asked about it because it's 19 games without a goal now. And he said some quite positive things about Højlund. Said they're working on it. Said he doesn't always make the right runs. Said sometimes he's too hungry to get the ball. He needs to, especially in the final third, to be nearer to goal and all of that. But he didn't really talk about his hold-up play, which is quite poor, honestly, as you mentioned. And that just makes the sort of long pass all the more weird in a way. So it just doesn't stick up there. But yeah. Anyway, I mean, good spirit to get back into it with De Ligt. Then we had the red card, which, as always with these things, there's going to be a ton of debate around. Honestly, I don't really see that there's any option. He didn't mean it. Of course he didn't mean it. He didn't mean to catch the Ipswich player halfway up his shin with the studs showing or anything like that. He's caught a bit of the ball, but intent just doesn't figure into it. Hasn't for a long, long time. And so the referee, whatever speed they show him in slow motion to see where the contact is and at full speed to get the real sense of what happened. He's come from a long way. He's sort of lunged. I think that's going to be given as a red 100% of the time, at least in terms of the directives. It's really clear and might not be how fans see it or how ex-pros see it because they played the game, but that's how the guidance is written on what counts as dangerous. So, don't know. Maybe you have a different opinion. I just don't see how the ref could have done anything different there.
Now, there was a bit of an incident just before that, like a flashpoint, where I'm coming straight from the game here, so I have not seen any of the replays of any of the incidents. I've only got my memory on it, and I asked you just before we came on air, and you weren't familiar with this, but there was an incident just before it where some people around me were going for a red card for the Ipswich player. I can't remember who it was, but I think he went in on Dorgu. I'm not categorizing that and sort of saying this is why he did what he did, but I think that sometimes in football games with momentum, when you get an incident, you often get a very quick flashpoint straight after that. So there was a challenge, and then there's another challenge, and I think it was something like that. Yeah, I actually the only thing I have seen since is the red card, and I don't know. I think like it's high. You don't really give the referee much option there, and it's unfortunate. I think it happened. It's one of those things where the game is so fast now, and the challenges are so high that things like that happen. I don't think there's any intent in there. I think he's just kind of lost control, and the momentum in that moment has just kind of gone like, all right, he's gone in, and then you watch it back, and it's a red card. You can't avoid that. So it's very, very difficult. But even then, we're 2-1 up, and I'm thinking we're not really in that bad a situation.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
You walk in tired and hungry, one bad dinner away from losing it. You don't like to cook. You don't want more takeout. You just want something good. That's why there's Dish by Blue Apron. Pre-made meals with at least 20 grams of protein and no artificial flavors or colors. From fridge to fork in 5 minutes or less. Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Yeah, one, Ipswich aren't very good. Yeah, there's 4 counts on which I think he could have given the red cards, and the dangerous one, and they don't all have to come in sequence. Any of them will do. Yeah. So endangering an opponent that's enough. And then there's guidance on what counts as endangering an opponent. So the height and the force will be enough there, and there's no mitigation. You can have mitigation for weather. You can have mitigation for that. You can have mitigation for space. You can have mitigation if someone has forced you into an opponent. So anyway, it's going to be a tough learning moment for Dorgu, but just a bit impetuous, I think, there. And maybe the previous challenge got to him. It's not as if Amari Hutchinson was having a particularly good game, honestly. He didn't do anything against Dorgu. And I think there's, for me, a lot of promise in that left-hand side Dorgu, Garnacho link-up. And Amorim's systems do emphasize on these wide link-ups. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect by any means. I'm not saying that Garnacho did loads. But the two of them together, unfortunately, Dorgu's going to miss 3 games now. Probably means we get Diogo Dalot back at left wing back. Joy! That's awesome. Awesome stuff. All right. So United go in at the break, and pretty chaotic going, but we come out straight after half time. It's another set piece. Harry Maguire with his hair all brushed down like he's in the in-betweeners. It's the weather. Let's just say it was the rain that got to him, but gets his old big head on it. Thumping header, great header.
Yeah. And 14th goal for United, which is, in how many years? 2019? 2019, so we're talking 6 years.
5 years, yeah.
It's not actually that impressive, is it? It sounded too critical. I'm not being critical of him, but I was trying to look at the numbers. It is that impressive, but it's not. 14 goals in 5 years, 6 years for a centre-back isn't really...
Yeah. Well, it's not impressive if you compare him to Steve Bruce.
He played well. I'm not criticising him.
When he came from Leicester, he didn't have a particularly good scoring record, and a lot of his reputation was from scoring a couple of goals for England in the World Cup. I thought. I think he should be more dangerous, given his physicality. He's not great, as we saw at the weekend. Not always great at jumping, is old Arry, for a big lad. And so... the record isn't amazing, but it was an important goal tonight. Winning goal tonight.
Timing is everything.
Look, one thing I'll say about Harry is that he's got his strengths and weaknesses. I don't think you can ever doubt his character. I don't know whether the character played a role tonight, but they defended pretty well for that second half. After giving up 2 calamitous goals, I don't remember another really good chance for Ipswich after that. So that's
but
some props there.
But 2 in one game is quite high, right? Do you know what I mean? Because there wasn't another one after the second. 2 is quite high. But look, 10 men, they saw the game out and tried to build on that and attack. Do you know what I mean? They didn't just go, all right. Yeah. And they could have done. We've seen shaky United performances. So, in the spirit of trying to say that there were positives to take from this, because I have one thing that I've said amidst the cacophony of defeats that we've had is that it's just been difficult to see any positive change. But what I will say that the positives that we've seen tonight is that there's some kind of work going on within that system, which is a pleasant thing to see. And the other thing is the character to win with 10 men. The issue that you have with this United side and the manager, unfortunately, at the moment, is you want to see that second half and that character and that resilience count for something moving forward and not just be an isolated incident, right? That's what we want to see from every positive piece of this jigsaw that it adds to something that you can build upon. And he said, this was when Amarim did this, and this is why it made a difference at this point, or this is why the players stood up at this point and turned around some of the wider opinion on them. Is there enough in that? And the difficult thing when we do a podcast after a game is that we are analysing that in the isolation of the 90 minutes. So it feels like, all right, you're being quite reductive on that. But you can only do that on the evidence of that 90 minutes. So then you go, all right, how do you see that over the next 4 or 5 games?
Yes, we are analysing the game straight after it's finished. The passion of the moment comes through more than the deep analysis of what happened. We're not able to see what they did in the training pitch all week, although Amarim prior to the game talked about how he liked these recent few weeks where they've had a few spare midweeks. Not going to last much longer, with the Europa League kicking off again shortly.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Well, all right. I think that's Ipswich. Plenty of fight and spirit, as you said. Whether that means anything for the bigger picture, I'm not so sure. But Ruben Amorim, as I mentioned, was talking about having those free training weeks and how much he thought it had benefited the team. So let's see whether that plays into things going forward. Fulham in the FA Cup starts to become quite important, really, the FA Cup. I mean, it's not as important as the Europa League, just because development of club revenue, Champions League, all that kind of stuff, but pretty bloody important. It kept Ten Hag in the job last season, so we're not going anywhere in the Premier League. So this one's important.
No, yeah, I mean, every cup game is, and you can never discount the quality of, the sort of consequence of that kind of momentum. Like you were quite right there to say that people have sort of been on the other side of that fence, haven't they? Saying, like whether or not that was the right thing to keep him in a job. You've said that, and maybe I would argue that as well. So the value of winning it sometimes against a long-term prospect of that managerial reign is a funny thing, because you want to win trophies, and trophies are the currency with which you measure the memories and the history of the club. So it's a funny thing, really. Did it set the club back? Are we any? It's all moot now, but the consequence of the FA Cup for Amorim, like I say, I don't think it's quite as severe as the Europa League. The Europa League's got so much significance now, in a way that I remember you saying a couple of years ago when we signed Casemiro and Antony, and you were talking about how critical it was that we qualified for the Champions League that season, and we did. But now, without a year in there and the potential of no European football, I think everyone's starting to see how critical not qualifying for the Champions League next season is going to be. And that's laid bare. Now it's no longer you hypothesizing behind a spreadsheet on a podcast. Everyone can see in the figures how that can affect United's ability to work in the transfer market for the foreseeable future.
Well, it's more than that, Wayne. Unfortunately, it's transfers, it's a couple of players. If we're looking in the 30 to 40 million pound range, Dorgu style signings, which I think is the strategy going forward now, but it's also not cutting another 100 people.
It's me. Yeah, exactly.
The catastrophic thing with Casemiro and Antony, and I'm not like picking on them as players or anything like that. It's the nature of the deals. You just keep paying for it over and over again.
Yep.
Like as we are, Casemiro will probably trigger the extra 10 million as well, or at least parts of it based on appearances. And it's just been so incredibly expensive and almost impossible to let him go without taking another impairment. Anthony, the same. It's like he's doing well in Spain, and we need him to do well in order to get the fee to sell him up to a point where we don't actually lose money in a PSR era. If you lose money, that's less money you can spend. Yep. And so the guaranteed, even if you're terrible in the Champions League, it's about £40 million. If you're not absolutely horrendous and you make it into the top 24, it's about £50 million. If you get into the top 16 with all the win bonuses and all of that, it's probably about 60. If you make it to the final, you make 120 plus, especially being from a big TV market like England. So yeah, incredibly important. That's all down the line. That's why the Europa League is important. FA Cup's different, right? There's not loads of money on the table. It's glory. Like in the end, what do we remember from the 1983 and 1985 seasons where United were pretty dog shit? We remember winning the bloody FA Cup, don't we? For older folks, go back even further than that.
No, you're right. And the FA Cup has got this history, long history with United, who are now equal or close to equal with Arsenal as record holders. Some incredible memories. Even last season, you talked earlier about chaos, and that was that season last season. And remember Casemiro scoring in the last minute at Forest and thinking, oh, is that going to be Ten Hag's Mark Robbins moment? And then the incredible game against Liverpool in the quarter-final. Incredible for many different reasons against Coventry, some similar reasons against Coventry in the semi-final. And then the final in which, United played a 4-2, 4-4, 2-2, the 2-2s both being midfielders, no striker formation, but could have scored 4 goals in the first half. And we remember them. You remember the run. You remember playing Liverpool in the semi-final in 84. You remember playing Arsenal in 83 in both semi-finals, and Derby in the semi-final in 76, and Leeds in the semi-final in 77. Some epic games along the way, because if you can't win a league title, then you talk about football being measured in moments, and the moments along the way for trophy wins, obviously, are important. Now, United's cup run so far is pretty much bland. Maybe a bit harsh, but the way that we qualified for this round was completely unconvincing. The way that we just got through against Leicester with that disallowed goal. Fulham are confident visitors to Old Trafford.
Yeah.
They have been. They scored that goal last season when they had Traore making, not that this is any great achievement considering the rapid pace of Traore and the not so rapid pace of Arry Maguire, but he made him look really bad last season in the league game. So they have weapons. It's also fair to remember that when United have won at Craven Cottage over the last 3 seasons, 2 of those have been in the last minute, and the last one was that Martinez shot from, say, 25 yards. So it's been quite fortuitous when we've won against them. So you've also got to remember that United are carrying a lot of injuries. This isn't a given. Like, no game at the moment is a given for United. They're playing at home. It's going to be a really, really tough game for us. Yeah. And it's not one where I can sit here and confidently predict that United are going to win, because I look at the dangers that Fulham have got in different areas. I think, oh God, they could expose all United's weaknesses, especially now that we've got all the injuries that we've got, and we're not. I think Dorgu will be suspended for the FA Cup, right? It's all domestic games.
It's domestic games, yeah. I always forget which competitions it applies to. Yeah, probably. They've won 7 out of their last 10, Fulham. They're actually playing well. They are in form and confident. So, and they're set up pretty well, I think, to play us on the counter. So we'll ineffectively probe in front of them and they'll hit us on the counter. It's the cynical way of seeing this game. I see a lot of dangers in this one. Obviously, I just think we're primed. Thin squad, 4 days turnaround. Unfortunately, this will have taken a fair bit out of the players, so they played half the game with 10 men. One of our more physical presences will not be playing in Dorgu. We've needed that. His impetus, just the physicality, and his running is as well as his quality, has added quite a bit, I think, even in these 3 games. So we're going to miss quite a bit, I think. A lot of red flags, like just in the analysis.
Also, the balance that he brings to the side is very, very, very simple. But the balance of having a left footer on that side and the right footer on the right hand side has been critical to the baby steps. Slightly better against Everton, slightly better against Ipswich tonight. But that's only because of the fact that there was balance there. That's not to say that United were particularly good. It just means that they looked more balanced, and you can underestimate. Something we said before we signed Dorgu was the fact that because he was left-footed, you can underestimate sometimes the simple exponential growths that you get from seeing square pegs in square holes. I know it sounds a very reductive analysis or very basic, but it is really, you do see the small stepping stones like that for United, and that's what it has been. So now to go back to this unfortunate balance that we're going to have there is going to be something that Fulham will be looking to exploit, and they probably will.
Yeah. Sadly, you can't help but you go through the 7 stages of a football fan's grief here, don't you? Like, we've now got to the acceptance that we're shit.
I'm not casting doom and gloom on that. What I mean is they will cause problems.
They're a good side. We're not a particularly good side. We're trying to find the to use that word again, balance in how we play. Amorim, after the game tonight, said they were looking to play a bit more as a 5-3-2, obviously looking to not give away too much. Yeah, that worked. Nothing about this systemic approach that gave away 2 goals there from United. So I'm not laying that on his doors, just a little bit of an irony there. And yeah, absolutely, that balance on the pitch around the left-hand side, the connectivity that we like to see, or Amorim likes to see, between his sort of inside forwards, wide 10s, whatever you want to call them, and the wing backs. It's really important in his system. You look at how many goals his Sporting side scored from cutbacks and overloads down into wide areas for those third men runs, or for Goicoechea to finish. And he just doesn't have the personnel to do that. And that's why Dorgu's his first signing, because he's the archetypal player to play in that role. And so he will be missed for these 3 games, and United will have to find another solution. It's really difficult right now because, like, the things he wants are the things he doesn't quite have. He's making compromises with the back 3, having 2 fairly static players in there. He's making compromises at wing back. He's making compromises in central midfield because Bruno's dropping deeper. It's a needs-must situation now in order to actually progress the ball. Unfortunately, that compromises are attacking impetus further upfield because you've got different players coming into there. As much as we talked about Josh Xerxes' qualities earlier, he does not create chances like Bruno does. He doesn't finish chances like Bruno does. He's not as quick as Bruno is. He's not as hard a worker as Bruno is. He's not as big a leader as Bruno is. Apart from those things, what has Bruno ever done for us?
For goodness sake, do not ever offer your services as Josh Xerxes' motivational speaker.
Honestly, I don't. I just, unfortunately, he's not Bruno, and that's his problem, not his fault, but his problem. Apart from the roads and the toilets and the sanitation and the all of that, what has Bruno ever done for us? So yeah, I mean, like, I feel sorry for Amorim because he's trying to do a lot of stuff without having the requisite tools. And I think there's been this debate, especially over the last week, and should he adapt? Should he compromise? What should he do in order to get the best out of United? And we've had 5 managers preceding him. Well, maybe Moyes didn't give up on his philosophy, but all the others did in some way or fashion. Moyes rigidly stuck to his philosophy, for better or worse.
4-4-2. Yeah, but
get it in the box.
Yeah, and even then, it was like, you signed in a number 10 again. In fact, you could argue Fellaini was a 10, Mata was a 10, and you gave the 5-year contract to Rooney, who was a 10. What are you doing? Anyway.
Well, just as 10s were going out of fashion.
Just buy loads of 10s, like different 10s, different variety of 10s for a team where it plays 4-4-2. Anyway, so yeah, but the thing is with Amorim, is the thing that I've been saying for maybe three weeks or so, is that you want, or he's not going to change the system, but it is about the adaptation from within it. So, all right, you know that it wasn't working the way that it's supposed to work with the players that it did, that he was choosing at the time, and obviously the injuries have changed how flexible he can be with that. So you can't be too critical on the choices that he's making. However, the little changes that you see with Bruno dropping back or Ugarte, even if I don't like the look of it, Ugarte moving to the right side and things like that, the little Xerxes dropped deeper a couple of times today as well. And like I said, there are things, unfortunately, we won't see it on Sunday with Dorgu and Garnacho, is the dynamic between who stays left and who goes inside, because that changes. The idea was that the fullback or the wingback would stay wide, very much wide, but we have seen with Garnacho that he likes to do that. And so there's been some kind of compromise there, because we were talking the very early criticisms that we had, or observations were, can Garnacho play in that pocket at 10 because it doesn't fit. But what the adaptation, what we've seen recently is they'll let him try and play wide left. That's what happened against Leicester, and it changed the game. And these are the things. Earlier I'm talking about when I'm saying what are the little morsels that we're seeing that we can build upon. We are seeing a manager who is very slowly, in very tiny sample sizes, doing those things that we want to see, where he's trying different things within the system. So he's not sacrificing the principles. He's using the tools at his disposal and saying, that wasn't working. I've still got the same players. How do we move it around within this 3? And that's actually, it's not entertaining at the moment. The game was entertaining because of the mistakes. It's not an entertaining approach to football, but at least you are seeing some kind of progress in there.
Yeah, no, I'm all right with that. I think he's tinkering within the system. He's talked about principles rather than, he's rejected a lot of the criticism that's come from the media about the 3-4-3 or whatever, and he's basically just said, look, it's the principles that matter in whatever position. Although he talked tonight about being a bit more 5-3-2. I'm not sure it really looked like that to me. It looked, especially out of possession, it looks like a 4-4-2. Whatever. I think he's doing the right things. He's trying to find solutions. He doesn't have the ideal squad for it, for sure. And how far he'll get towards his ideal squad this summer very much depends on how far United go in these cup competitions, unfortunately, for him and for all of us watching. But very dangerous on Sunday. Just would be a miracle if United walk over Fulham. I just don't see it. They're playing well at the moment. Fulham, they've got a very smart manager in Marco Silva. They run off a small budget compared to ours. Very, very small budget, although they do charge tourists coming into London £600 to go to a game or whatever it is. So it's brutal. So there you go. I'm not sure whether they'll bring a good following. Fulham, not awesome at bringing large followings to games. Maybe they'll do for a cup game at Old Trafford. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Final thought, Garnacho caused a little bit of a stink after he was taken off by walking straight down the tunnel and not joining his teammates on the bench. Ruben Amorim was asked about it afterwards, said, I'll have a word. It was raining and cold.
Look, you can understand, because the sensible thing would have been to put Garnacho there to see out until half time and then make, like I was saying earlier, make your concessions at that point. But then, especially, it didn't look like a wise decision at the time, and it didn't look like a wise decision 2 minutes later when we conceded a goal. It's like, well, where are we going to find the penetration from in the second half? But you can understand why he made the decision, because he was like, all right, what do we need to protect most in the system?
He said he was worried about set pieces.
Yeah. And so he's sensible. And at the end of the day, you win the game of football. There's no comeback on any decision that you made, really. So he's just, look, he's like that. Garnacho, you don't want to see it.
He's young still. He just, it's happened quite a few times. Not exactly this thing, but little bits of, you feel like he's not matured.
Yeah, and especially when you see a month ago, 5 weeks ago, his very future at the club was up for conversation.
Right.
And so he's had some kind of salvation in some respects.
Yeah, well, he's done
well.
something right, because
Yeah.
him and Rashford were out for maybe different reasons. We don't know exactly. We're out for that City game. Rashford never came back. Garnacho has done. So he's done something right in the manager's eyes to not only get back into the squad, but start fairly regularly, if I can get that word out. So I would not necessarily come down on him like a ton of bricks. I do want to see steps towards professionalism, though, because
that's
turning
what I mean.
it late at training. I think he walk down the tunnel one other game when he came off as a sub. Wasn't that an issue with Ten Hag? I may be making that one up. Hallucinating, as they say these days.
No, he could have done. But I mean, you want to see, this is the point, is that when his professionalism is being questioned, the last thing you want to see just weeks after he's been given a reprieve at the club is something like this. You can understand being disappointed because, like I said, I at the time, I didn't think it was the right decision. But, and you know, that you're an attacking player, you don't want to be brought off when you haven't done anything wrong. But that's the sort of maturity aspect of what which you spoke of there. You just got to sort of, even if maturity is getting advice and saying just don't always react.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to reacting? I don't think there is. So there'd be no, apart from if United don't win and he showed off and everyone could say, well, he was right to have showed off. But that's not wisdom on his part and a damning judgment on the manager because we had a red card. So there just wasn't a benefit to it. So you would be advising him saying, all the greatest players in the world, all the greatest players. What am I saying? Ronaldo was so prone for the hissy fits.
Yeah.
Do you know? But you know what I'm saying? There's almost universally no benefit to reacting.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Most players mature over time. Ronaldo is 40, going on 4. I mean, honestly, behaves just like my toddler. Now ex-toddler, but slightly older. Anyway, all right. I clearly cannot talk anymore. It is very late. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Wayne Barton.
Thank you, Ed. My full Sunday name was given there. Well, not quite. You didn't do that, but thank you, Ed Barker. From me, Wayne Barton, good night.
Good night for me.